Hello and welcome back to Analog Comics. This is one of those videos that kind of happened by itself. As I was reading Proteus Vex and I realized while reading it that I need to say something about it. If you watch closely to the thumbnail of this video, it said a hidden gem. That is a term that I try to avoid as much as I can. I just want to avoid that situation where that so-called hidden gem is something that everybody knows anyway. But in the case of Proteus Vex, that term came to my mind immediately after I finished reading this. First of all, I love it. This is pure entertainment. However, I would normally never ever buy a comic with this kind of cover. It's kind of messy. It has strange colors and all those yellow bars like advertisements here. Another galaxy, a different type of hero. And I don't think that this is a cool cover. The panel here is poorly chosen. I could have come up with many much better choices from within the book because this is one of the panels inside the book. And that raises the question, why on earth did I buy this and read this? Well, it was suggested to me in one of my earliest videos on this channel. I can't remember which video and who it was, but whoever you were, thank you. Someone just commented that maybe you should check out Proteus Vex. And I love the fact how these suggestions go. Someone watches my video, I'm talking about some certain book or a series, and then somebody watching it thinking like, if he likes that, he might like that one too. And this is how I found this. And oh boy, I was surprised. This was so entertaining read. And once I read this and realized how good it is, I checked a little bit of the YouTube and there isn't that much info about Proteus Vex. It's not that much talked about. And since I loved it so much, I decided that this is a hidden gem. Of course, it's not hidden gem for everybody because someone suggested it for me. So someone has read it before, but this really doesn't have that kind of exposure that more famous comics have. Before looking inside, let's look at the technical specs of the book. Well, it's a trade paperback size, so nothing special there. And there is absolutely no extras. So I'm not going to open the last page for you because you'd see the last panel of the story, and I always try to keep this spoiler free. And the same goes for the first pages also. If I open it up, it goes straight into the story. And one more thing that makes this a bit rare in my collection is that it's published by 2000 AD. It's a company that I haven't bought a lot of comics from for a long time. I used to read a lot of Judge Dredd in my teenage years. And back then I was also interested in Rogue Trooper. I have some of those comics too, but otherwise outside Judge Dredd and a little bit of Rogue Trooper, I'm not that familiar with 2000 AD. I do know the characters there, but I haven't really taken a really good look into them. And Judge Dredd is a good bridge to this story because the writer, Michael Carroll, and the two artists here, Henry Flint and Jake Lynch, they have all worked with Judge Dredd. So that is the one combining factor for all of these creators. But the big difference to Judge Dredd here is that now Michael Carroll is writing his own original character. Also, this book says that it's a volume 1, and I do hope that there will be other volumes in future. But this one holds 2 different stories, and they are also graphically very different. Henry Flint is mentioned here first because he is the artist in the first story, so he kind of lays down the basis of the character and the style. And then Jake Lynch takes over in the second story and he continues from there, but he has a very different art style. And I'm going to give you examples of both artists' styles. But what is Proteus Vex about? Well, first, it's a science fiction story and it's an action story. Some say that it's like a James Bond in space, but I think that James Bondiness is only one layer of it, as there is so much world building, there's so much characters, strangeness, and there is this sudden epicness. It's like the story just suddenly pulls out the epicness card, and you realize that it has kind of nudged its way almost unnoticed, in an unnoticed way, into a space opera area. But the premise of the story is that there has been a massive galaxy-wide war, of course. And there was only two sides to it, and the other side was just one species. And that one species was so strong that it was about to wipe out everything out of its way, like kill every other race. And that's why all the other races, they kind of combined their forces, like alliance. And even after combining their forces, they were on the losing side of it. So what they ended up doing is that they teleported a dying white dwarf star into the system of this other race. And they were kind of pulverized in a second. And that kind of ended the war. And I'm not revealing too much because you know all this when you read the first panel of the comic. Time-wise, the story starts a little after that war. And Proteus Vex is an ex-soldier from that war. But after that, he's turned into some kind of super agent running errands for the Imperium. So he arrives on this planet looking for his boss because he's missing. He also has on board on his ship, which is kind of a cool, just a cube. It's very well done because it's partly see-through. So in his spaceship, he already has this another alien. This alien was wanted by its own race, and he has found her already, and she's on board also. Her name is Midnight Indicating Shame. Yeah, you heard me right. Midnight Indicating Shame. And what happens just within few pages, I was a bit lost because it dumps you so much names, races, places, and it's like an info dump, and they are talking about them without explaining it. And I often say that not explaining too much is good, and it actually works here too. You are just placed into this strange world. You are the stranger in a strange land. And some of the things they explain later and some not. But it doesn't hamper with the enjoyment at all. In fact, it leaves a lot of meat on the bone. You kind of know that there is even more to find from this world. And the first story starts very locally. Everything that's happened is very local, meaning that they are on this planet and it happens here. They are having difficulties, fist fights, gun fights, sword fights, all kinds of fights, and that's the action bit. I think that's a bit like the James Bondish thing there. But gradually, when you get to the end of the book, you realize that it's been expanding there in the background. You kind of see it, but you don't. That all that action in front of you, it kind of hides the fact that there's more stuff coming all the time to it. And once you got to the end, you realize that, man, this is a space opera. And the end leaves you to a very satisfactory conclusion, but it also leaves you the impression that this can go on as long as they like. And it can go on with those very local adventures and fights, or it can expand to even greater epicness. And one particular I need to mention is the dark humor in this. And this is where the 2000 AD and the Judge Dredd past comes to the story. What I've always liked about British is their humor. It's not meant to please everybody. It's not a politically correct stuff that they do in UK in general. I grew up watching Monty Python, Blackadder, Father Ted, and all those great series that they have. And I fell in love with that kind of humor. And later in my teens, when I found Judge Dredd, that had also that humor there. Despite being kind of darkly humorous, Judge Dredd was also always kind of commentary on that totalitarian world. If you read Judge Dredd, you never kind of knew if he was the hero or the anti-hero, or if he was the evil guy there. And that made it so interesting. It changes depending on the story. And I can see that bloodline leaking into this comic, the Proteus Vex. So it's clear that these creators have been delving a lot of time within the Judge Dredd world. Then another interesting detail which Mike Carroll has written into the story is the narrator. It's as if someone's commenting what you're reading, but they're commenting it from the future. As if someone would be reading some kind of document where they are talking about what happened in the past, which is the story of the Proteus Vex that you're reading. So you're kind of feeling that, am I going to see this? Whoever voiced this are we going to see it, or maybe this is so far in the future that we don't see it and it's just there. But the tone that narrator has adds another layer to it. Sometimes it feels that it's meant to kind of slap the comic itself in the face. Like sometimes there's some dangerous stuff happening there that might be not in a way funny, but that narrator, what it says on those caption boxes, then again, that's a funny bit there. So kind of the whole is keeping you on its toes. And that's what I mean by kind of comparing this to Judge Dredd. You never know if this is funny, dark, dangerous, wrong, right. And for me, that kind of spells entertainment. This is clearly not meant to be a very deep commentary on anything. It's just a fun sci-fi adventure with really weird aliens, worlds, physicalities, rules, habits, technologies. Not even the characters themselves are aware of everything, and some things comes by surprise. And although the story keeps growing towards the end, it doesn't lose the fun. And one more detail I just need to mention about these kind of fun things that are slipped in there into the story. This one is more like a visual one. There's this particular race that when you look at it, the only thing I can think of when I'm reading it is the Austin Powers movie where Dr. Evil was demanding that he has to have sharks, but with lasers. And this kind of has it. It's totally bonkers, but it works. And even the discussions they are having with Midnight indicating shame, these little just comments are also funny, and that happens among kind of very bloody and brutal fighting. Because Midnight indicating shame, she has this habit of eating all the enemies. But that's all I'm going to say about the plot itself, because you find it yourself if you want to read this. But I think the most important thing when you go in is to know that there is that Judge Dredd blood pumping through it, and it's pretty obvious because all these creators have done Judge Dredd for so long. But now they are not kind of handcuffed to a certain character that has been around. Now they have their own original playground to play with. As for the art, I liked very much both of the artist style. In fact, I don't know which one of them is better. Henry Flint starts the comic as an artist. He gets to set the tone, so to speak, and there is so much Moebius tones in it. And I saw some interview where he commented that when he saw the script for the first time, he felt that it had so much Moebius in it. And I can see it in his graphics. I don't know him as an artist. I don't know if I have read already his works with the Judge Dredd, but this is clearly very Moebius influenced. But then again, it's not a copy of Moebius. The colors are much more kind of mixed, where Moebius would use bigger areas of one color and like that. But this is much more kind of mashed together. And also his line is thicker and more, I wouldn't say sketchier, but it's just thicker. So that kind of makes the art his own still. And of course, he is responsible for this creation of these alien beings. So he is a massive contributor in the beginning. And although the cover gave me the DC and Marvel vibe, the character itself is not, a muscled hero. He's a very skinny guy. And all that makes him just more interesting. And there is actually one much, much more interesting detail about him, but I will not talk about that. But it is a really great detail about him. And once I learned it, it made me look at him very differently. First, I thought that this is not a good thing. Then I thought, well, this is actually a good thing. And afterwards, I'm thinking that it makes him even more complex and hard to pinpoint character. to me, that felt that it was a brilliant idea what they did with this character. The same goes for Midnight Indicating Shame. That's also a brilliant character design, just like physically what she can do. It's all the time you're surprised by what's coming. And then at the second story arc, Lynch takes the place as an artist, and the contrast is really big. Suddenly the art is very clean. And when I got back to Henry Flint's art, I was again like, no, this is better. Again, back to Lynch, I was, no, this is better. So I just decided that I like them both. I liked whatever I was reading, but they are so different that if you're reading this, it might divide your opinion very black and white in the middle, like this is better, this is worse. For me, I was lucky to like both of them really much because then it didn't really hamper with the story and I just got to enjoy the ride. So I guess that's all about Proteus Vex for now. And for me, it was a sleeper hit. It was a true hidden gem. It's something that I might give a 1 second look in a comic book store and then just move on. But now I was lucky to be suggested this and read it and liking it. And yes, the book says volume 1. I really hope there'd be more because there's so much potential in that world. In fact, the world had even more connection to Moebius, and by that mean Incal, and through that I mean Jodorowsky. There's something about the universe that they build that has that Jodorowsky size madness and potential. Like there's so much stuff in it that you can start from any place and start going this way or this way. And I like the fact that I'm being surprised. Like there is crazy technologies there and alien biologies there that kind of just surprises you. And some of them are silly, just like Jodorowsky. He's not afraid to test the most insane ideas, and that same feeling is running throughout this book. And just like the one gladiator famously once asked, are you not entertained? I am. Proteus Vex was a really entertaining read. Okay, but enough of this. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.